All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the In Between podcast. All right. So I have been teasing Joshua, excuse me, a little bit on the past few episodes, but he is here today. Joshua Dairen. He's a social media rising star. I mean, literally, he's grown almost 60,000 plus followers on TikTok in the past, 6 months. But he shares stories on the paranormal, historical buildings, and most often haunted lore around these sites. It's fascinating. He has Southern superstitions and he has things on Alabama, Georgia, Florida. The list goes on. He's also does stuff on UFOs. So it's super informative and also a little creepy. So if that's your vibe, check it out. He's a video contributor for Alabama Vintage and BuzzFeed Unsolved. He's a big player, y'all. And that's not all. He's also a rock star as an entrepreneur who opened up his own coffee shop, literally the coffee shop. Check it out in your Opelika, Alabama. And he's father of the cutest little Taurus, which I know I may be biased because I'm a Taurus. But the most important reason Joshua Dairen is so epically cool is he's one of the coolest, most genuine human beings I think I've met in recent years. When we first started chatting, I was like, I know this was kind of weird, but I think we might be kindred spirits. Maybe we were twins in a past life because, yeah, I just feel a great connection. He's such a great human being. And I'm so excited to have him on the In Between. So, Joshua, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. You really buttered my biscuits and shined me up real nice. So
Ooh, I love that phrase. What a Southern phrase.
so I appreciate it. I appreciate all the love and kindness.
Absolutely. So, real quick for everyone listening, how Joshua and I met. As you know, my spooky friends over at the Real Haunting podcast, and I always call them spooky friends, but like they're more than that. Don't worry. But, anyways, they always introduce me to the coolest people. And one day I got introduced to Joshua, and I was like, oh, hey, we are, like I said, kindred spirits. So boom, here we go. And this is where our collaboration came from. But we're also Southern neighbors because you are like, I don't know, not even 2 hours from Atlanta. And where I grew up, we're really close, like practically neighbors. So yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of time for us to meet. Duh.
Yeah, and I agree with there may be some type of a past life something because we are way too similar in way too many things.
I agree. I totally agree. Like anything that I overthink, I'm like, I hope this isn't awkward. I hope he doesn't think I'm weird. And then he's like, same friend. And I'm like, all right, this is great. So when are we going to have a board game night? You know, that'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, because right before we were recording, we were talking about how you were kind of nerdy and into that kind of nerdy stuff. And I'm like, so what do you want to talk about? Star Wars? You want to talk about comic books? Like, where are we going with this, Harry Potter? Because I love all those things.
Yeah, because it's funny that you say that too, because usually I'm the friend that's the weird one who's like, I'm overthinking this. Am I coming off too strong? I'm really because I'm really am kind of extroverted. I claim that I'm an extroverted introvert, but that's not true. I'm an extrovert who chooses when to be an extrovert. There's no introverted in me. I like talking to people. I like running my mouth. And that's pretty much why I do everything that I do. So usually I'm the person who's like you in your situation is like, am I like coming off weird? Is this weird? Is this a weird thing to say to somebody that I barely know right now? But I kind of feel like I kind of know him, so I guess it's cool.
Put it out there, just let it fester, you know, and you can either take it or we can just pretend it was never there in the first place.
Yep.
Yeah. Also, that was beautifully said, the extroverted comment. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that, but that is absolutely to a T how I feel. Because I used to think, or I'd like to think that I was an extroverted introvert, but no, you're so right. Like, I just know how to turn it on, but I am charged up by people, and sometimes I need to go decharge or recharge, I guess, alone, but yeah, turn it on. But you know what? That's okay. Because sometimes I feel guilty for my extrovertedness. Because I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's cool to be introverted. You know what I mean? Because we're obnoxious sometimes. But
yeah, I get that
blessing.
vibe. I get that vibe from my coffee shop all the time because I'm basically harassing you as soon as you get in the door. And then if you are giving off introverted vibes, my whole goal is like, I'm going to crack you open like a nut. Like, we're talking today. You're not going to come in here and straight face me and be all shy and stuff. And I'm in this shop. Like, we're talking, we're finding something that we connect on so I can open you up so you can make sure you come back, but also to know that this is a safe space.
I love that.
So I think extroverts have a really important role in that regard in helping introverts feel comfortable. I think that most extroverts, at least the good ones, are kind of protectors in a way. They really protect their people and their friends.
Ooh, I totally agree with that. And I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, I've done a lot of introspection is the word of the year for me.
Ooh.
Because, you know, like there's two different types of extroverts, and not to get too off topic, but
No,
I think
let's do it.
they're the ones who are like, wow, like you are a frat bro, like please stop. And then there's the other people who are like, wow, I really want to be around this person because they're giving up such good energy. And anytime they see something that's off, they're going to cover me in their shield of extrovertedness and make sure that I'm okay in the process of whatever's going on. And I like to be the latter and not the frat bro. And I
Yeah.
think that you also kind of give up that the latter and not the frat bro energy too. It's a good thing. It can be a little unsettling for some people because
Yes.
they're not used to it.
Yes.
Especially with the extrovertedness and the niceness pairing together. It's really
And the
cool.
authenticity, like being open, like
Yeah.
being okay to just, I mean, correct me, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to assume you're the same way. It doesn't take me a long ramp up period just to go there in a conversation. And I don't necessarily mean we're unpacking all of your trauma, but
Yeah.
like, if I've met someone within 6 or 7 minutes, we're talking about the meaning of life in some capacity. Like I can't help it. And I don't even mean to.
Yep.
It just happens naturally. I promise I'm not a freak. It just happens. But I love that. And I love thinking of it as like the extrovert as the protector. Cause when I think of certain situations with some of my introverted friends, like close friends, and I don't even mean like me sticking up for them necessarily, but
Yeah.
just social dynamics or even handling like, hey, when things get heavy, helping them find their strength within them and pulling that out. That's what I also envision what you mean by the extrovertness. So yeah, I totally agree. I love that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's exactly what I mean. And I feel the same way. I'm very transparent. I used to be the exact opposite, to be honest, as I like just growing up. I used to be the person who wouldn't say much, who would let people go deep before I ever went deep. And I realized that to connect with people, you kind of have to go there and get a little bit below the surface early so that
Yes.
people can understand you're a real person. You go through real things. And even if it doesn't always have to be bad, but just you're willing to go deeper than small talk. Because I like small talk, but I don't like it for that long.
Oh
Like
yeah, for
once we
sure.
start small talking, let's get deep. Like, where are you from? Why do you like it there? Why don't you like it there? Like,
Yeah.
what are things that you've taken with you? Where have you been? Why have you been there? Like, I like to talk about those kind of things. And I think the protector extroverts are really good at kind of skimming below the surface and catching bigger fish than just, the little water bugs on top.
I agree. And, it's interesting you say all of this because I also have this mantra that I try to leave people better than when I left them. Even if that's like just a small gesture, you never know what people are going through.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean that as an, oh, I want to be hoity toity or better than other people. No, it's just, I think about the small moments that have impacted me when I've been super low or going through a really hard time or a hard moment and just the kindest thing. Oh, I took care of your meal for you. Oh, we're closing up. It's good. You can have the side of French fries. That could make me cry because you have no idea. I was mourning the loss of my grandfather. Like, you never
Yeah.
know. So just be kind. All goes back to be kind. So,
I agree. I've given a lot of free coffees away that I didn't have to. Like today is a great example. I one of the people came in today and they worked nearby and she ordered a drink and then she stayed for a second. I was like, that's interesting. And she was just kind of like, whatever. And then she was like, I'm gonna order a drink for my friend. So I had a couple of drinks ahead. And in that moment, I was like, I'm gonna give her a free coffee because she's been here for a while. Maybe this will make her day a little bit better. So of course I had a conversation with her the first
of
time.
course.
She works a job that just whatever, like they don't really appreciate her. So I was like, you know what? Give your friend this free coffee. Like you don't even have to pay for it because she was gonna end up having to pay for it too. So I was like, it's cool. And she was like, no, 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 I need to pay. I was like, no, you don't. Like we aren't gonna, have a
Crumble.
going out of business sale tomorrow because of this. It's all good. Like give your friend this and save your money. And so it's just stuff like that. I think that those transactions can really turn people's energy around before they get started, before the day gets started good. So I'm a big proponent of, like you said, leaving people better than the way they came.
I love that. So you said that you weren't always like this. What helped
Yeah.
you tap into this introspection? This, I don't know, I want to go inner narrative, but like it's deeper than that. It's just where did this come from? Because obviously it's always been there. So how did you find the strength to bring it to the surface? That's probably a better question.
I went through a really hard 2019 through 2020. Those 2 years were very hard for me. Going right into the pandemic, I had some personal family things happen where, I mean, I'm just going to be transparent. I have no relationship with one of my, I'll just say members of my intermediate family. And this is somebody that I grew up with and like looked up to. But from there, it was hard. And I went through like a year-long grieving process because this is
Mm.
somebody very close to me that I gave a lot to. But in turn, it made me have to look within and say, okay, why did this happen? What could I have done differently? But not in like the self-pity way, but like, what do I bring to the table that would make somebody want to be a better human to me? And I realized that
Oh,
it all started with me. And I realized that I didn't have the confidence that I thought I had. I didn't have the view of self-worth that I thought I had. I put all my energy into helping people, but without real reasoning behind it. And I just didn't have a sense of identity without the people that I had surrounded myself with. So I had to just look within and say, okay, who am I as a person? And what do I actually offer that anybody who comes in contact with me would recognize immediately? And so that just kind of started the journey. And so I would say that the person I am now has been a 2-3 year journey of just taking every single moment, dissecting it and saying, okay, I can do this better. Or what does it mean to be nice? Or how do I become more assertive when I need to take more command of a situation? What kind of energy am I giving out to people? Is this why I'm receiving that? And so it was a lot of like trial and error too, to see what levers I need to pull and how do I actually incorporate that into my daily life authentically. Like that's actually a part of me. And so it just took some really hard trauma to
That's what I was
pull
going
that
to
out of me.
say. Yeah.
And so I like say things in the public so that people don't have to go through what I went through
Mhm.
to have these tools and keys.
Yep.
And not to say that they're like foolproof, because I'm a human, I'm imperfect, and
And
you know,
everyone's
some
journey is different too.
yeah,
So, what may work for you may not work for someone else and
yeah,
or who knows, but I resonate with that because that's kind of what I want. Like not that I expect everyone to have my same struggle, my same journey.
yeah,
I expect people have far worse, maybe not as bad. I don't know,
yeah,
but just being authentic because that's where I think my journey started. Well, mine was like when my mental health went to shit after my car accident, but getting back to it, learning, refusing to let it not even to necessarily define me, but I was like, I have to get better because I'm not meant to be miserable. Like this cannot be my life.
yeah.
And just
That's
sharing those experiences. And even if you can't identify, I think the openness and authenticity can be a little scary to some people, but I think it can also create conversations even with just yourself of like, okay, things could be different. Like I don't know. I think
yeah.
people like us are meant to share that and know that's going to make some people uncomfortable. I've already ran into that myself, but I'm not going to stop and that's okay.
Yeah, what you said is very important. And I think that that's the thing too, like being able to be willing to share and be vulnerable and transparent. That's like a big part of authenticity and just coming off as a genuine person. It is scary for some people, but I think over time, people always come back to that interaction that they had with people like you, where they say, you know what, this person really didn't have to share that. And now I'm in this moment of sharing something that I really don't have to share. I understand what kind of person this is. I think I want to be more like that. So even if it's not necessarily
Exactly.
like they can take from the advice that you gave them, it's just like that interaction matters. It's like those really little things. We're in a world right now that's so fabricated and
Yes.
manufactured
And
that
negative. Don't forget
and
that
negative
part.
too, 100% negative.
Oh, so
That
negative.
the little like positive interactions I feel have the strength to cut through some of that. And even if it's not right away, people are going to come back to it and say, wow, like that's what I want. And that little tiny seed that was planted from you just being transparent in a moment where you didn't have to gets nurtured. People start thinking about it. They start introspecting. And then that seed starts growing into a sapling. And that sapling turns into a little
Oh,
baby tree. And then that tree matures. And now you've been a catalyst for somebody else's change just by being the best version of yourself to somebody else.
exactly. I'm gonna cry. I'm like, geez, oh my God, everybody. But seriously, that was beautifully said. And I think you have that power. I mean, how long has your coffee shop been open? Because it's fairly
Um,
new, right? Or am I crazy?
Yeah, so it was already in operation for about a year. So we bought it straight up as is April 21st. So we're in our 2 month stint of running it.
I can only imagine the impact you're going to have on your customers and your clientele base because I mean especially at the coffee shop, right? Like the coffee
Yeah.
shop kind of has that vibe, that aesthetic that oh, here's your coffee, have a great day kind of thing, because you also associate coffee starting your day, getting it going and think about if you're running late, all the stressful things that can happen during the day and then you have a positive interaction with you and I'm going to go on a limb assuming your staff is just as pleasant it could change your entire day so hey and that leads me to ask the question this is all great this all sounds great and dandy here we are here's our light yes open introspection yes but what happens when we have to recharge and I don't mean just you and me, but the universal we. And also, side note, everyone listening, you don't have to be an extrovert to also offer light. No, we're not saying that at all. We're just also talking about extroverts being badass. So, anywho, but how do you recharge? This is something that I struggled with a lot, especially when I was kind of coming out of my depression, my mental health spiral, because I was also like, oh, okay, well, I don't feel empty on the inside anymore. I'm starting to feel things again. This is cool, but also like, I had all this ambition and gutspa with the podcast, but I was also still terrified with it because, depression,
Yeah.
right? And it was just a weird balance trying to balance the imposter syndrome, balance the ambition, and also balance like being there for people and also offering that in the podcast. I think I've gotten a decent juggle with it now, but that's also because of therapy and this and different books I've read and self work. Always self work. The self work never stops. That is
That's so
Bible.
true.
Drops mic. Just want to put that out there. Make that the sound clip. But how do you recharge? Because it's a give and take. It is a tightrope for sure.
I would say I've kind of narrowed it down. I have a formula. The first thing I do to recharge is I stop doing everything that's work, even if I still have to do the work. I would say that's probably the scariest thing. There's a lot of fear that comes with that because when you're working and in a flow, and then you stop and you know you're going to have to restart again, it's always that fear that you're going to come back and everything's going to be gone to hell. But what I've learned is that that's actually never the case. And burnout is your enemy. It's not your friend. And if you continue to work through burnout, you're going to burn yourself out even more. And I like to think of it as a tire. If you put your car in park or you put it in drive and hold the brake and you keep spinning your wheels, like your tires are eventually going to reach the rim and then you can't drive anymore. And so that's kind of how burnout is. You're just going to keep going. So the first thing that I do is I go and find things that I love to do. I'm a big nerd, obviously. So I will go and I will go on Twitch. I'll watch my favorite gamer play his game. It's something that I can just turn my brain off and just enjoy for what it is because I found him. I like his personality. I like how he approaches things. He's a very positive person, but he also plays games in a style that I like. He breaks it down. He reads everything and he makes it like an experience. So I go and find things that will give me an experience where I don't have to physically work. So that's number one. And if I'm beyond the point where that works, then I go and I start just writing down list of goals and things that I want to do. Because sometimes when your battery's low, it's because you're working on so many different things and nothing's really getting accomplished. And the process is just continuing and you're kind of feeling left behind in the very things that you started. So I'll start writing stuff down and making sure that I refocus my intention setting, my manifesting, and how I want to approach the next month or 6 months. So I reset my ambitions from being right now to in the future. And that sometimes helps my brain stop having worry over what's going on in the interim and like makes it think about where things can go. So kind of giving yourself that breath of fresh air. And then number 3 is if that doesn't work, I literally cut everything off and I just hang out with my family and people that actually mean something to me and give me back the life that I feel like I've lost in the meantime. And number 4, if that doesn't work, I literally go touch grass. I'm not even kidding.
That's very grounding, I'm sure.
It is. It is. Because sometimes like just being outside, no phone, no headphones, just being outside and just listening, not for anything in particular, but just listening is the best method of recharging for me. If all else fails, because I feel that if we are Earth, then the best way to get back to functioning like normal or even better or exceeding our normal is to get back in tune with the earth. And we lose that with so much technology and being inside buildings and on computers and go, 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 go. So those are like my keys. And of course, everybody's different, but that really helps me as a person who is extroverted. I'm talking to people every day. I'm inside of a building. I'm cranking out coffee. I'm making videos. I'm, researching, or my face is always in a screen or in somebody's face.
Yeah.
So usually that little time of isolation is helpful where there's actually activity going on in the background that doesn't need me.
Right.
So that's another long-winded answer. But
no, that was really helpful and informative. And I also like that you have 4 different styles. And I just wanted to say, as you were saying all that, I keep thinking about the fact that, okay, so you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, and you and your wife own the shop, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you guys are a married unit. So you're a husband. You're also a new father, business owner. You're the boss. You're talking to the people. You're also making videos, which you were telling me earlier. Sometimes you make 2 to 3 videos a day. If it's kind of slow, but at least 1 video a day. And for those listening, if you don't know Joshua Dairen, you go watch his videos. Like, I'm not kidding. They're super informative. They're very well researched. It's going to give you a lot of factoids, a lot of fun facts. Okay. But that's not, I mean, I'm sure you're very smart, but like, I'm expecting you didn't just know all this. So that takes time and effort and energy, and man, research is exhausting mentally, right? So, I mean, that's a lot to juggle. So let me ask you this. Will you get kind of burnout, overwhelmed throughout the day? Or is it more just like if you're hustling hard, maybe it's a hard week kind of thing, or are you having to constantly kind of recharge throughout your day? Because how do you juggle it all? That's kind of, I guess, the question I'm getting down to.
The best answer I have is I don't.
That's you know what? That's a very fair, honest answer. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's I don't really, but I do recharge throughout the day, and I do take extended time off sometimes. So this
Good.
weekend is going to be one of those weekends because we have so many things happening throughout this week for the coffee shop, for video stuff. It's been a heavy week. So it sounds absolutely like counterproductive, but I opt to go into the coffee shop early before anybody else. So I open the shop almost every morning, if not every morning, if we don't have our one employee there that morning. So I open the shop. I usually get there maybe 30 minutes or so before. And I know that I have at least an hour total before like our first customer walks in because nobody usually ever walks in when we open. So I'll take the time, the drive to get there. And then I'll take the time while I'm in there, like getting things set up to like not have any music playing, don't have anything on, no sounds, and just breathe and set what I want for the day. So that's kind of the way that I recharge because usually I go to bed early and I wake up early.
Yeah.
Um, so I do that like at the start of the day. I kind of clear out the energy of the space and just let the space know that this is only the highest and the best. Only the highest and the best is allowed here for myself and from the people coming in here, which doesn't always work, but I try to clear that out when they're in there in real time, which usually works. Normally, if they come in a bad mood, they're going to leave in at least a slightly better mood.
I
Um,
could see that.
so I do that, and that it just gets me into like the okay, it's a new day. I'm tackling it. Don't get overwhelmed. You pace yourself. You have this amount of time, and then I also have kind of a loose schedule. So I know between the time that I open to about 9 to 10 o'clock, it's just me. That's all I got. It's me and the customers. It's our time. My wife usually comes in somewhere afterwards after dropping off our kid to daycare or something else. Then we tag out. So then I'll take that extra 30 minutes, breathe, hop on my work laptop for my day job. So I'm a demand generation manager for a tech company.
Oh wait, so you have another role on top of everything else? Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
just throw another ball to the juggle. Jeez.
So yeah, I have another like full time. This is what I mean. Like I don't juggle it well. So I'll take that break, work on that, and then just tag in and out for the rest of the day. And yeah, so I just take every opportunity I have. And usually there's a time when we get home that my wife puts her kid to sleep. And so I'll take that time, breathe, don't have anything on, get off my phone, just look at the wall if I have to.
Yeah.
Um, then she comes back, we hang out, kid free, and then I go to bed. I take the time laying in bed to just like, ooh, it's been a day. I got all my stuff done. On to the next day, wake up early and repeat. So it's more so I just needed to add a little bit more structure in terms of planning out when I was going to take a rest and just being flexible that sometimes it might not happen that
Yeah.
way. And so the long-term thing, and also this is another long-winded answer, like this weekend, our one employee is working on Saturday. And because we have held it down this week, I'm not showing up to the shop. I just won't be there. I said, because if I think about the shop, I'm going to mosey to the shop.
Yep.
And then once I mosey, I'm going to stay there.
Yep.
And then I'm going to start serving customers. And then, oh, wow, I worked the whole shift.
Yep.
And then I'm taking that time away from resting. So
Yep.
we're probably going to go on a vacation and travel somewhere and just do a mini-cation,
Yeah.
even like to Atlanta or something, just so we can get away and be somewhere else. And yeah,
Oh, well, we'll have you. Let's do it. Let's have a little party. I was gonna say, it sounds like everything, you're very intentional, and that's a lot of self-discipline. Have you always been really good with self-discipline? Because with ADHD and also learning more about it in the past year than I have my entire life, I am just seeing how so much of it has like stunted me or held me back in certain things. So I'm kind of relearning how to establish better habits, better routines, and just how beneficial those are. Because my big word is grounding. Like, how do I feel more grounded? Because it's so easy for me to be like, because when I have all those balls in the air, I can do it because triple Taurus, but also I'm a badass. But my anxiety will start to rise with it. And it's not as bad as it used to be, but it's all about getting back to the grind, all about getting back to the ground, which, side note, I just want to compliment you on your earth metaphor earlier of like how we are part of the earth. It makes sense to ground with the earth and everything. I think that's beautiful. I love that kind of stuff. Because when you said that, my brain started thinking about the universe and stardust and the
Yep.
energy. And I was like, bring it back, because that's not this episode. Get it back, girl. Get it back. So before we go on that rabbit hole, I'm just gonna bring it
Well,
back.
I could answer that very quickly. I could still make it long-winded because me and Gemini and communications major and all the worst things wrapped up in one. But I'm
Hey,
a
I'm a
classic.
communications major, so shh. Shut your mouth.
Well, I'm a classic thoroughbred Gemini, as I like to say. So no, I have not always been intentional about things. I'm very much go with the flow. And no, I have not always had structure. Actually, structure is a very new thing to me over the
Mm.
past couple of years with the kind of incident. It kind of caused me to be more intentional about the way that I move, the interactions that I have, the people that I talk to, the people that I have close to me, the people that I share the majority of my energy with, and the people who I just give bits and pieces of it to, how I go about my day, why I structure the way that I do, and just tweaking and making sure that even if I don't have a solid calendar, having enough structure in my head to know, okay, when today happens, I have all these things to do. This is how I need to structure it out so that I will be my best self, but also not have that anxiety that creeps up when you're juggling so much stuff. And that's new. I'm still learning that. This is one of those things that I'm still learning, and it's constantly improving. And I'm constantly trying to grow here because some days I really do fall short in making sure that I structure, and I end up offloading things onto my wife or like people who are depending on me to have my, for lack of a better term, to have my shit together. So it's a learning thing, and I know I package it up real nice because also communications major, but I struggle with that probably every day with something, whether it's not always big, but sometimes it's just
Oh
small.
yeah,
Like
exactly, for sure. As you were saying all that, and we've already touched on this, but it's interesting because your experience was onset by trauma, a traumatic experience. And I was thinking about my
yeah,
journey, and it's not that I think I'm trying to suggest that everyone has to go through some super traumatic thing, but I think it's a good example to show you how trauma can affect you, and it can either take you down or you can. God, it's going to sound cheesy, but you can rise above. But that's a journey that takes time. I mean, you yourself said this has been a years long journey. My car accident was November 2017. So how many years has that been, right? Like, and
yeah.
I've been straight for a good like year and a half or so. I mean, I still have a few physical issues and things like that, but it's just interesting how your experience, your traumatic life experience, I'm not saying you decided per se, but like through
Yeah.
your own actions and you're putting one foot from the other, it led you down a higher road.
And I'll say on that note too, I finally got a chance to see a movie for the first time in months. And it just happened to be Spider-Man because for one, Spider-Man is my favorite all-time superhero across the board. There's nobody touching the one spot. There's no 1A, 1B, 1C. He is number one. But it's because and they kind of bring this up in the film, minor spoiler, but it
Wait,
is
which
what it
is
is.
this the new animated one? The
Yeah.
Miles? Okay, I haven't seen it yet, but I
It's a
loved the first one.
it's a slight spoiler,
Okay,
but
that's
it's
fine.
not a spoiler that's going to ruin the movie.
Wait, can I just pause you real quick? It's a fun fact about Liz, and all my friends will back me up on this. But I will read the last page of a book first, especially if I love the characters. I need to know if they're going to make it. So I'm a fan of spoilers because I like to know what's going to happen. Spoil
Yeah,
away.
we are 100% like twins in a past life, where like we were best friend. We have conversed at some point in a deep way in a past life, got to, because I am the only person in my friends group who prefers to have spoilers before they go and see
They
things.
think I'm crazy. I'm like, no,
I
I
prefer
mentally
it.
want to be prepared.
I like it because it gives me the opportunity to not be focused on how it's going to end, but pick up all the little nuggets and all the nuances
Oh,
and theories and
yes.
stuff throughout
Yes.
throughout the book, the TV show, the movie. I've always been like that, and I've always felt like I was one of one because people don't do that. That's like
No,
not
they
a normal
don't.
thing.
They don't, and they
Um,
make fun of you and they think I'm crazy for it. But I love to know. It's also like, especially if there's like an animal involved, I'm gonna make sure they're alive or not. Because if they're dead, I'm not watching it. I don't give a
yep,
shit. I mean, the
yeah.
reason I'm missing Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is because apparently it goes into Rocket's backstory, and I'm just like, that sounds a little traumatic.
Oh,
Not
yeah,
sure
it
if I want
is.
to do that.
Yeah, I know the comic backstory. It's very traumatic.
And
So
then, but
yeah.
then one part of me is like, CGI, Liz, get your shit together. But then I'm like, CGI is very convincing. Okay, so I'm sorry.
Well, that's really cool because I've never met anybody who said that. So I keep it to myself usually, and usually people are like spoiling things. I won't say anything because like I know if I say it, then they're gonna like hold some stuff back. I don't want you to hold it back. I want you to tell me all of
I
it.
want you to tell
So they'll
me
be like,
everything.
"Yeah, I want to know it all." So like minds, great minds think alike.
I love it.
But
So Spider-Man, second Spider-Man animated movie.
yeah, referencing that, so they have this thing called a canon event, which is an event that
Mm,
has to happen. It has to happen in order for each Spider-Man to go on the journey of being the Spider-Man that we know, which is the one
got
of
it.
duality that's balancing how to be a good person, but also how to balance that with having a great responsibility of being a good superhero. And I feel like that's very similar to how everyday life works because we all, well, for some of us, we have those canon events that in a way had to happen, not to desensitize like the traumatic things that have happened to us, but had to happen that we were able to overcome so that we could become the people that we were meant to be a lot sooner than, people who were a little bit later, like on the precipice, are seeing, this is kind of morbid, but are seeing death and are finally like, I could have been better here, 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 and here, instead of those, who were kind of younger. And what I like to say is, in our sense, who had those really traumatic things that really impacted us, that really hurt us. But as we healed, we started overcoming those things. And those pushed us to say, okay, life is intentional. So I need to be intentional. So I need to work on and look within to like translate that outwardly, because I know that I'm a good person, or I know that I'm striving to be something better than what I am now on a daily path. And it shifts like your mind, because I'll say before this traumatic event happened, I was just kind of going through life. Like I
Yeah.
really was. I had plans, but they were so just minimal, like not things that would really change anybody around me. They were very self-absorbed in that sense. And going through that experience, those two weren't correlated, but it helped me see like there's so much more in life that I think I need to be a part of for the right reasons, because there's
Yeah.
so much in life that's bad. And this is kind of ranty and rambly, but that's just kind of
No.
how I feel. Like those canon events are so important. So like for Spider-Man, like each of them had some type of member of that was close to them die in some way,
Yeah.
but that caused them to hold human life in such high regard, and which caused them to use their powers for good and better than the average superhero. But the truly good characters, even in the DC lore, come from people who have really traumatic things happen to them
Yeah.
to propel them to not only see their powers as being a great responsibility, but the responsibility of protecting human life as a whole and being willing to sacrifice themselves, because that canon event that changed them to introspect more and have it's a circle. So I'm talking in a circle. So I'm gonna stop
No,
talking in a circle.
I
But
just was about
I
to
think
say,
you get
I
it.
love the fact that you just made a beautiful metaphor comparing like superhero origin stories to like everyday life, like talking about Spider-Man and the duality and being a good person, but also being the best superhero version of himself. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a very, very nerdy, but which I
Yeah.
love, way to look at it. So let's talk a little bit about, because I want to give some cred to your videos, your content, your creativeness. So when you said earlier how you didn't really have direction, when did you get into the video content? Was this during the introspective journey? And if so, I'd love to talk about like kind of how that played a role, or was it more of a byproduct of, or is it a little bit of both? So yeah.
So I've always been an artsy person, like since I can remember. It was hard for my mom to put me in timeout or in the corner, because that's
You
where
just start drawing.
I draw or hum or sing or make beats or talk out loud, come up with ideas, talk to myself. I know I look like a gigantically crazy child, but it was only because I liked being with myself. So that was like not a punishment. That was actually better for me. I didn't realize it and then, but like for my social battery, for me being able to recharge, like just being in a corner with myself, just hanging out. But I've always been an artsy
Yeah.
kid. My mom bought a piano when I was 5. I literally taught myself how to play piano a little bit as a kid, just off of sound.
That's
And so,
impressive. Very impressive.
and not to brag on myself, but like I'm just more so just trying to paint the picture to get to where I am now. So I was intrigued by artsy things. So I started taking up music at my school, and I did every musical related thing that I could do: singing, writing, music, all of it. So that stayed with me. And that has still stayed with me. I don't get the time to do it as much, but nonetheless.
I was going to ask, you still have it? Can you still do it? That's cool.
Yeah, I still do. I just don't do it regularly now because I don't like to sleep well at night. Um,
Mm.
but nonetheless, that spurred my ambitions in looking at animation styles and videos. And I started watching videos, and then I started getting into the paranormal a little bit later, and I started watching all those documentaries. So I think that kind of flipped the switch in terms of, I think I'll probably like try to be an actor or something. So that was my original initial plan as a child.
Oh,
I was
okay.
like, I'm going to be an actor. I'm going to be on Disney Channel. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I'm going to be megastar, and that's just what it's going to be. So I kind of pursued it a little bit, but I don't think I had the right backing in terms of like, I'm from Alabama. When you say you want to be an actor, it's like, okay, yeah, join the club. Everybody wants to be an actor and not really work for it. So I didn't really have the push for it, but I knew I wanted to do something media related. I just loved media as a child. Went through school. I didn't really pursue it as best as I could have, to be completely honest. I was still in the process of finding me, and that kind of stuffed my creativity down. And then I had a lot of imposter syndrome because even though I was very creative and could come up with really good ideas, many of those ideas would go on to be used for other projects. I never saw myself as being the vehicle for that creativity. I just saw myself as like another tire metaphor, one of the tires, you know?
Oh.
And so leading up to 2019, I was getting more into the creative space, but still not really having a true footing or a true desire to really put my all into it. The 2019 event happened and the introspection thing happened. And as I started finding myself, I realized like I have way more gifts than I'm even giving myself credit for. And I have stuffed away and hid away parts of me that have always been there because I was so desperate in trying to be a chameleon for the wrong reasons. So trying to fit
Ooh.
in and adapt for others so that I could feel comfortable being around others. And this sounds prideful, but I do not mean this in this way. But being around others and showing my gifts have exceeded the room that I'm in. And took
Ooh. That
it took
was good. That was
it took
deep.
the 2019 event for me to see like it's okay to have more talent in an area that you were naturally gifted in and pursue that and not worry about if that makes somebody else feel bad because you are living up to what you were created to do because that was given to you to do this thing. So like if people are upset with you by proxy for you exploring your gifts and being good at them, then those people aren't the ones who should be around you because they should uplift you and encourage you to continue to be better. Because you, as a person, Joshua, have been giving this to other people and showing them the light and giving them the support that they need for their talents to exceed the other talents in the room. But you haven't given yourself that grace, or you haven't surrounded yourself with the people who are going to do that for you. So that was like the big epiphany moment. And from there, I was like, okay, I'm resetting. I know I'm gifted. I know I'm talented. I've been working after this too. And that's where like the imposter syndrome tried to like creep in and say like, hey, like you haven't been working for this. You just are naturally gifted. It's like, no, I'm naturally gifted and I've been working after this craft. I've been in news. I've been in media. I've been doing these things. I've done all these things for other people. I can apply this for myself. And so that's when I started. So I started trying stuff. I started so many different projects to try to figure out what that was. And I realized like none of them were truly what I wanted to do
Mm.
holistically because they did not meet my purpose. And I always say purpose is passion meeting a frustration. And so I finally happened upon what that purpose was. I finally happened upon what that passion meeting that frustration was. And that was number one, people who are rising stars being authentic, genuine people that you would actually want to follow, whose lives translate from on screen to off screen to on screen to off screen seamlessly. And number two, I didn't see myself in the treasure hunting space, in the paranormal space, in the history space. And that was frustrating me because I was passionate about all of those things. And so one thing led to another. I started exploring it. I started doing some research without ever like really doing any content creation around it. And then just said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I finally said, if this all fails, like at least I tried it. But these things are a part of me. They've been a part of me. I can trace them as far back as I can remember. I need to do what I'm gifted at and start using my mouth and using my ambition and tying those two things together and like really go after it. And
Hmm.
that's just kind of where it started because the common denominator of all these things was my mouth.
Yeah.
If there is anything that I was really good at, it was running my mouth and educating people on stuff that I actually cared about. Yeah. So I was like, let me try the paranormal thing. I don't see myself here. I saw the Ghost Brothers. Like, if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went downhill. And so now, like, I'm still in that process of exploring things. And yeah, I'm very excited for what I'm going to discover about myself in the future just by pursuing those kind of things. So that was very long winded. I'm sorry, but
No, but
I'm,
well, you started the story with your introspection and how you got there, that journey. And then you talked about how your creativity and your videos evolved. And I just want to say, like, I loved the metaphor and everything with passion and purpose, purpose being passion, being with frustration, and how similarly, here we are again, go figure another parallel we have. You're talking about how it evolved and you're just trying to figure out what met that purpose. And you looked inward again and said, well, why don't I just do what I actually like? Like, why not? And
yeah,
it's interesting you say that because obviously I'm not quite the level you're at yet. It's getting there, right? It's going to get there. But when I think about the journey to this point, it started even before my car accident happened. I similarly wanted to be an actress growing up. I did lots of theater, I did film. Then I had something happen to me that really kind of stunted my ego. I was 15. One of the bigger child agents in Atlanta at the time, I don't know if she still is, I really don't care. I auditioned for her, and mind you, I was 15. Okay. And she was like, and this was like 2006, 2007 ish, sometime around there. So different time. That's why I'm saying that. And she was like, that was a good audition. But here's the thing, you're too fat to be the leading actress and you're not big
Whoa.
enough to be the friend. And that stayed with me big
Wow.
time. And it messed me up.
That is
So
a
I
terrible thing to say to anybody.
Oh
Jesus.
yeah. Oh yeah. I'll never forget it. But guess what? Talk about those canon moments. And I am not saying that experience is anywhere as traumatic as some other experiences. No. But that was a core memory canyon. Memory canyon. Wow, that is like a tongue twister now. Core memory cannon. Oh my gosh, there we go. Um, that has stayed with me. Now, it did not propel me then, but as I've started exploring the idea of I could do something creative, it propelled me there. So how the in between came to be started is just like this idea of what's my dream job? Be a talk show host. Okay, well, how can I make that my reality? How can I make my dream job a reality? And if my passions of bringing authenticity to the public, because I think that's originally where it stemmed from, but also that passion of speaking and communicating and connection, that's
Yeah.
where the podcast was born. But it stemmed also from the question, how do I make my own dream career? And then believing in the fact that, well, I could. And let me tell you, the confidence wasn't there in the beginning. I had no confidence. I was like, I don't know how this is going to happen. But you know what? So many people do it. Why can't I? So that's, yeah, very similar journeys, and going back to just the root of what you want and then believing in yourself and then just trying to rebuild, just not even rebuild, but keep continuing to build that confidence, because
Yeah.
that's what stunts the imposter syndrome, which we
And
still have.
yep. And I have two comments. The first thing is I think that, well, also, of course, you wanted to be an actress, and of course, I want to be an actor. Why not? What at this point, I like nothing surprises me. But
Same.
I find it fascinating that we still found a way to do what we wanted to do. And I still think personally, this is just a feeling that I have, which is also why I'm so rabid when it comes to doing the things that I do. And I know you are too. I think that there's going to be an opportunity. I think the doors are going to open for that. Maybe not when we thought it would when we were children, but I think that the opportunity is there, especially with a rapidly changing world and people looking for people like us to enter that space because of the people that we bring with us and just because they know what they're going to get. Like you can go and research both of us and you can say, okay, I know exactly how Liz sounds. I've heard her podcast. She keeps cranking them out. Like I know what it sounds like. I know what I'm getting. I can hire her because I don't have to go through the audition process. I don't have to go through XYZ. And same for me as well. And I think that content creators as a whole, whether it's a podcast or videos, are going to start getting more of those opportunities because, for one, it's less work for people to actually find. But two, we are honing our skills from what we wanted when we were children, just in a way that we didn't know was available at the time.
I
And
completely agree with that.
number two, something that has boosted my confidence as well. And I think you're probably similar in this regard. It sounds way worse than it actually is. But if there's people whose content we consume who are, this is going to be the meanest thing that I say the entire time, who aren't as talented, who don't give their all, and just do stuff, can have gigantic platforms and reach millions of people, then there's no reason that people who are talented, who do give their all, and are very intentional with the potential millions of people that they may reach, can't do the same thing and just as good or better and have the same reach and platform. And that's one thing I had to realize. That's what I use to kind of cut the imposter syndrome sometimes too, because there are so many times where, I mean, the past couple of weekends that I had with Amy Bruni and Aaron Sagers and Adam Berry and John Tenney and Greg and Dana Newkirk and these people who like have made a living off paranormal investigation, and like having me, random content creator me there, I didn't use that formula like they're less talented and I'm just but the formula as I've worked to get here.
Right. You have a place at
I
the
have
table.
I've earned this. I do put in a lot of work. I do put in a lot of research. They treat me as an equal because they see me as an equal. So I'm not an imposter at this table. I am meant to be here at this table, and I'm going to continue to grow as they continue to grow. because somebody's looking at me the same way that I'm looking at them. And so hopefully they are inspired by me the way I'm inspired by them, but also realizing that just because they have 300 followers on TikTok doesn't mean that they're any less valuable than I am. And just because somebody has 1 million followers on TikTok doesn't mean that I'm any less valuable than them and don't bring the same value of content, the same level. I'm not impacting people the same way. And, blah, blah, blah. So that's how I've had to cut that imposter syndrome, because there's so many opportunities for you to look and say, I don't know if I should be here.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Especially like with my full-time job, when I can't commit as much time to the in between. And then, what I talked about earlier, kind of feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm juggling, but it is not as topsy-turvy. I'm not grounded like you are. I'm not touching grass and I'm not watching Twitch. I am just having a panic attack. You know what I mean? I'll beat myself up like, man, if you could just get a little bit more better, put a little more structure or routine in place to plan out your content more, this or this, work smarter, not harder. I'm tired of working harder. But
Ooh.
I also tell myself, I do work
That
a
hit
9
me.
to 5, right? But it's like, I do work a 9 to 5 and I do this full time and I do it all by myself. And I've started to switch the narrative of being like, rather than, yeah, I do it all by myself, it's not the best. I'm like, I do this all by myself. And guess what? Homegirl did not go to school for sound engineering. Went to school for communications. I can write. I did do voice lessons for 10 years, so I can kind of sing. But yeah, I'm watching YouTube tutorials and I do this shit and it's fucking good. All right. I'm really proud. And it changes and I mean, I feel like there's been levels of confidence I've gained throughout this whole creative process. And let me tell you, it's been the most humbling journey. Let me tell you, because yes, I have my husband to support me. I have friends to support me. My mom supports me. But at the end of the day, for something like this, it is you, yourself, and you.
Yeah. I would personally love to somehow hire somebody to record our pep talks to each other, because I feel like they're very similar in that regard too. I say some wild stuff to get myself back, my confidence level back.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
If people heard me, they'd be like, oh, oh.
But it helps though. It helps.
It does.
And so our friend Brittany Crabb, our shared friend. Oh my God, that sounded very weird. Oh my God, our mutual friend. That's the better context. Oh my God. She came on the pod, talked about manifesting and affirmations and that kind of like intention setting. And I've been really trying to work on that. And it helps. It helps with the confidence, helps with the imposter syndrome. And it also, it's like that whole fake it till you make it thing, right?
Yeah.
And when it's just you on this ship and you are comparing yourself to everybody and you're at different stages in your creative growth, right? Like how much exposure you have versus like how little I may have kind of thing. You have to have that self-validation. So you have to build that voice up. You have to find your tips and tricks. Like for me in the beginning, it was reading lots of different kind of books. It wasn't even just like confidence type books, but introspective books, philosophical books, like what's the meaning of life books? Because for me, I think that's also been something that's been a driver in my life is, I don't know, I'm not trying to get like spiritual or anything like that, but just the meaning of life. And I fully embody, regardless what you believe, I feel like you bring purpose to your life. And so I choose to bring that purpose through the podcast by being that authentic person, that connection. Like maybe I can be a tether to somebody or whatever. But now I feel like I'm giving the long-winded answer and I don't even know where I'm going with this. But anywho, yeah. So
no, that's important. Like I'm a pacer. So like I pace, like it helps me get the blood flowing. But when I'm intention setting, I usually pace only because like when you start pacing, you kind of, well, at least for me, like it just helps me kind of get some of the jitters out usually when I'm trying to intention set, because sometimes the anxiety gets rolling because you're like, wow, I have some really big goals ahead of me. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But like pacing is like, no, like I'm active. I'm active in my body. I'm active in my mind. Let me combine these two things and get rolling. So like if you ever were to pop in the coffee shop before it was open and just like peek through the window,
you're just flying around.
Just flying around. There might be like a little racetrack in the floor from the amount of pacing like that I've just worn down the wood.
I get actual zoomies. Like I get zoomies. Like I joke to my husband, like I got the night zoomies. Here we go. And I just run around. So, I mean, at least you're brainstorming. I just get like an extreme surge of hyperness.
I get the mouth zoomies. My wife is not pleased. The mouth zoomies come. So I don't move when I'm in the house. I just start talking a lot. So yeah, poor her. because usually she's trying to sleep when this happens, and I'm like, hey, what about this? And what about this? I saw this. Hey, let's talk about this. Hey, what about this thing? So one time I was doing this thing, and so hold on, I'm gonna get there. And she's just like, shut your freaking mouth.
No more side conversations and no more even main conversation.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk a little bit about, before we wrap things up, let's talk about you as the content creator. So, as I've already mentioned and you've talked about it, you have lots of really cool videos. Like, I think, first off, I don't think your videos are boring. You said they were going to bore you to no. I don't think it's boring. I think it's really informative and interesting. I also, maybe it's because I'm partial to the South, being a Georgia gal, Georgia girly myself, but it's really entertaining in my opinion and captivating. But see, the other thing about you is you also have like these posts of self-empowerment and worth and being a good person, but I don't see that as much in your content. So do you want to bring more of that into your content? You talked about a podcast, so I could see you bringing more of that. Like, do you want to do a podcast that's more like serious topic based, like in the paranormal, or do you, or you mix and mingle a little bit of both, life journeys, life things, but also the UFOs and the hauntings and the paranormal and the historical lore and all that stuff?
That's a great question. So I have thought about it, which is actually ironic that you bring it up, bringing more of those posts to just like my TikTok, like in the story. But
you should,
I,
because it's
I
actually inspired me, just FYI, to post more things like that too. So you
oh,
never know what little gesture it could do for other people. So hint, hint, hint. Just saying.
I actually thought about that today. I was like, maybe I should like just start just doing this across the board. And you know what? I might just use one picture and just have different words every day. I wasn't sure. I don't know my TikTok audience as well in terms of like overall, but honestly, I guess it doesn't really matter as much. My TikTok's weird. So I had a time of being really personal, and then I had a time of kind of stepping back from the personal because I was like, there's a lot of people I don't really know. I don't need them showing up on my doorstep.
Yeah.
But honestly, I've been thinking about doing that and bringing that back. So I've done it a little bit on my TikTok a long time ago through my stories, but I probably will, just so people can kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit outside of the lives that I do. I try to do lives
Yeah.
once a week where I'm just talking to people and throwing in some little nuggets here and there because I can't help myself. While I'm also talking about like haunted stuff and things like that.
Of
But
course.
honestly, a stationary thing like that for 24 hours doesn't sound like a bad idea. And as for the podcast, if I do the podcast, it'll be a deeper dive into a lot of these stories. But as you know, the type of person that I am, there's no way it can strictly just be me talking about the stories and getting out of there. I would definitely try to leave as many nuggets as I could. And I'm always that person anyways. I do that for any interview I do. I do that for any public speaking thing. I'm always leaving some nuggets somewhere.
But that's what makes you unique. That's what
Yeah.
makes you unique. And I love that.
And
So
I
embrace
really
it.
I really kind of relegated it to my main profiles where I'm more my personality shown, like Instagram.
Yeah.
I like to make my personality a little bit more known on Instagram just because,
Me too.
like I said, all of my friends
Right.
for some reason love Instagram while I absolutely despise it in
We're
every way.
millennials. That's why.
And all my personal friends, all like my more personal friends are on Facebook, as you've seen.
Yes.
I'm way more cluttered up on Facebook. Like that's where I just say whatever on Facebook. I don't even care at this
Facebook
point.
is the cross point because like I have all the accounts tied to it, so I don't know what's getting posted from where. It's either missing cat or it's like here's a new podcast episode. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's all over the place.
yeah.
And just to talk about like the Instagram following, like the friends kind of being more there than versus TikTok. It's funny you even say that because like on this, I think it was this week's episode of the podcast I talked about, or this week's episode of the podcast and we're recording. So when this episode comes out, this will be that week's podcast. So last week's podcast episode, I think I talked about how TikTok is my sandbox. So to your point, like I want to show my personality and I go back and look at my videos and I'm like, oh, they're all just me doing little funny ass audio things like sassy, anxiety themed ADHD humor type thing. So it is a slippery slope, that TikTok. It's like, do I be me or do I just
Yeah,
be the TikTok version of me? Which is
yeah.
also terrifying.
It's a hard balance because especially now, like people for the most part really like the content that I do, but like every now and then, like the Alabama and UFOs video I just did, it's had some of the, I don't want to call these people filth, but
That was so
um
southern. This filth.
I don't want. I
Bless
don't.
those filthy hearts. Jesus. Oh my
I,
God. I
I don't
love
want
it.
to. I don't want to call them Phil,
Let's
but
call him filth. I love it. We're calling him
there's
filth.
just some people on there who just get on there, and it's like they are intent on just having the day that they deserve. And I like so this past video. Well, I guess it will be a formerly past video when this is
Right.
out.
We have to talk in
Um,
future tense here.
um, like I just got some real weird responses. Like y'all have been following me because I've seen y'all on other stuff. I don't know what makes this video any different than any of the wild ass videos that I do on a like daily basis. So I don't know why your reaction to this is so visceral. Like, why are you being so mean?
I watched that
So
video. It was fine. There was
yeah,
nothing insane about it. I
people
mean,
are
if anything, the
so
Alabama leprechaun thing is probably more insulting
yeah,
because
I
that's
know.
ridiculous.
And so like that kind of pushes me to be more and honestly it's just trolls. That's why I feel
Yeah.
comfortable calling these people filth because if you're a troll online and you're just doing this just to be a troll online, like
Bye
please
bye.
actually touch grass and not in a meditative way. Like just go outside and like just take your shoes off and just feel like what reality feels like.
Right.
And that's the second meanest thing I've said on this podcast. Um but no, like that kind of makes me not want to show like the full version of myself sometimes because I realize that like not everybody wants that. Some people just want to get on the internet and just F around and just make people feel bad.
But you ignore
Like,
those. You ignore those
yeah,
because those
yeah,
people are never going to be moved until something traumatic or something like that like happens to them. And even then, they
yeah,
may not use that in a way to propel them forward, right?
yeah,
But I understand kind of pacing yourself in terms of how much of the real all of you show, like the personal side of you.
yeah.
Um,
And I've
and I
had
do
some
agree. There's people who are out there who just want to be miserable and they think it's funny, which is really weird.
and it's also the reverse. I've had some people that kind of unsettle me a little bit. Like they just because part of it too is like people feel like they know you, like really know you after you show some personal things sometimes. And so then they start talking to you like they know you, which is fine because I'm not to everybody, but I generally try to set some pretty hard boundaries when I start like having conversations with strangers, really. So that also kind of gives me some trepidation. But I say all that to say this. I think posting the things that I post on like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter would be a good thing to add to TikTok regardless. Some people are like, like, oh, that's like toxic positivity. But on a real note, I'm talking to myself just as much as I'm talking to everybody else. And those are real things
Yes.
that come to me throughout the day that I'm like, I should post about this because this can be just as helpful to them as it is to me. And I should bring more of that light to TikTok because you can get all the negativity and trash from TikTok that you want to consume. The algorithm is tailored for it. So I can do my part in saying, hey, like, here's a fun, cool story. But also, if you look at the story that I just posted, you're also going to take something that's really important and valuable for yourself, even if it doesn't
Mm,
hit you just now.
yeah.
So that's a good point that you make. And honestly, that's some introspection that I need to do for myself
I love it.
over the next like day or two to figure out like how I want to do that and just telling myself why it's important to do it.
Yes. And you mentioned this that it's what you say to yourself, so why not share it? I do the same thing. I will walk myself off a anxiety attack ledge, so to speak. And because of all the work I've done on myself after everything I've been through, I try to if I'm feeling really anxious, I'm like, all right, let's handle this right now. Brittany said something on my podcast that was super powerful. Like I just haven't forgotten it. And she was like, I just don't think we were put on this earth or this universe to suffer. And I was like,
Yeah.
simply put, never thought of it as simply put, but
Yeah.
yeah. And so anytime I am suffering, quote unquote, which is a negative emotion, unless I'm watching a sad movie and just having a cry, I ask myself, like, okay, what's going on? Like, what is causing this? Is it a situation? Am I overthinking something? Is this me being self imposed? Is this a person attributing to this? Like, and I just kind of trace it back. And I don't mean that on a crazy, crazy level where I'm always just overthinking everything, but I mean that thing that's like eating at you. You're like, oh shit, I'm stressed out right
Yeah.
now. Like, I don't want to feel that way. And because of
Yeah.
the effort I put forth towards that, I snap a lot better. So,
Yeah.
moral of the story: work on yourself.
Yeah. So like and this is also a real part of me. I'm very intentional on trying to take the things that, like you said, I suffer through and turning that into a positive because I truly do believe as a communications person of all the things that if you can communicate it, that means you've overcome it. And if you've overcome it and you communicate it, well, now somebody else can overcome it because you communicated it.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
it's that cyclical thing
Yep.
that the flywheel Like you go through it, you tell somebody because you've healed from it, and now you have that piece of wisdom left from the journey. And now, as they're in their journey, as they recognize that they're about to go through it or they're in it, they could take what you've overcome and use it to overcome themselves. And so that's why I'm very intent. Like I might not have a positive thing every day, but I'm very intent on saying, okay, I'm going through this right now. I'm trying my best to work through it. I'm introspecting. Here's a nugget. I may still be going through this, but I think I'm in a better space because I can communicate where I'm at in the stage. So here you go. And I just let it flow. Like I don't force it. Sometimes I think on things, but I think that's also good too, because usually the nuggets you don't force are the best ones because they're authentic. Like I literally feel like it's the universe telling you this to remind you, and you don't have to physically work on like, okay, I'm going to write it down. Here's like the subject verb agreement here. Like the universe tells you and you just give it out. I think the universe gives us a lot of those opportunities, and I feel like we should take them because I agree with Brittany. We weren't here to suffer, and we were also here to make the world better.
I agree.
And that's a part of it. And then now I'm going to stop rambling because once again, I can go on another tangent about that too.
I'm like so many different topic ideas for our next episodes. I love it. All right, so we've been chatting for a minute now. Speaking of start to close things out, is there any big projects that you want to tease or share on the pod? Also, please, this is where you get to tee up your social media so everyone can find you. And everyone, you want to follow him because obviously after listening to this, he's a amazing human being. But I'm telling you, you want to follow him because he's full of so much cool information. And it's the shit that's not in your textbook necessarily. So, anyways, go Joshua.
I don't have anything major to plug per se. I will say, well, I kind of do. If you don't really care about Alabama, but you really want some cool stories about Alabama that are a little hidden, a little washed out, or sometimes not even just told, or, you know, even people in Alabama didn't know, go to Alabama Vintage on Instagram. I am a contributor for them. I make a lot of videos about cool stuff that I found personally and things that I think you should know. So that's really cool. I will be doing a couple more videos for BuzzFeed for a while.
Yeah. Go into that a little bit. Is that a revamp of the show or the web series or what?
So what they're doing is they're just kind of revamping the BuzzFeed Unsolved, just YouTube. They're trying to add more creators and be a little bit more diverse, have more people who have more perspectives to tell stories. So yeah, it's pretty much they're just breathing some fresh life into it after, you know, BuzzFeed Unsolved, the actual like ghost hunting show has gone away to a different network and it's turned into Ghost Files now. So they're just revamping that. But what I did learn is that I will be the very first video on BuzzFeed Unsolved Paranormal's TikTok page that they're starting at the beginning of July.
Oh, that's cool. All right. So we'll
really
be on the
cool
lookout for that. I'll have to reshare
Yeah.
that on the Instagram. I'll have to definitely reshare that.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that. I know that these videos are going to hit their socials at some point. I don't know when. I don't ask questions. I'm just grateful for every opportunity I get. So there's that. So go find me. I did a story on Dead Children's Playground in Huntsville, Alabama. So also said one of the things I was going to do if I ever got a platform was to center Alabama as much as I possibly could because we are like the least talked about state besides like, I don't know, Delaware or something.
And Delaware has Biden. Biden came from Delaware. So yeah, you really got to get Alabama up there. I love that. And, you know, I've noticed that. I've noticed because I mean, are you born and raised in Alabama or?
I am.
Okay.
I am.
Give Alabama the credit it deserves.
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Alabama can not be a great state sometimes, but there are a lot of good things that come from Alabama. And I think there are a lot of really cool stories that come from Alabama. They just kind of get covered up by a lot of the trash.
The filth. It gets covered by the filth.
The bad filth. So I'm trying to make Alabama known for good filth and spread it all over the place.
That good trouble.
Exactly. Other than that, I guess I'll just like be transparent. I'm really trying to find an agent. I want to go back into the actor thing. I'm going to probably push for that. I have so much more confidence than I did. I feel like I can do it. So many normal people are getting opportunities to do cool stuff, and I feel like I have a lot to offer in that space. So looking for an agent. So if you see me on a TV show, it's because I found one and the lights of heaven were shining upon me as I intentioned and manifested this to happen.
Hey, it'll happen. The Southeast is huge. I mean, again, 2 hours from Atlanta, Southeast is huge for movies and film and television. So
yeah. So you were correct about that. I'm actively trying to manifest some things. So we'll see how that happens in this year, but I've done a pretty good job of doing it so far. I'm a big believer in manifesting, and I think I can manifest some things. Other than that, you can catch me on the Real Hauntings podcast every now and then, talking about cryptids and urban legends.
Yes. Shout out to Noah over there.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, and Kat and
He-
JJ. Can't forget them. But yes,
yep,
shout out to our
yep.
friends over there.
I will say this very transparently as well. Without Noah, I would not have 95% of the things that I have now or the opportunities. And I wouldn't know 99% of the people that I know now too. So
Aw.
like you and Brittany and Stephanie and
Agreed.
Kat and JJ, like so many people that I've been able to meet. I feel like I've met all the good people first. I say that often because I really do feel that way. And so I'm very blessed. Blessed is a word that I use often, but I'm very blessed in that regard. Other than that, I might start a podcast or I might restart my old podcast. Don't go looking for it. It's kind of trash. But I might restart it and just start a new season where I actually have a structure and it's actually not.
There's nothing wrong with getting a structure halfway through.
Yeah.
That is literally what last week's In Between was about. So nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, because it's garbage. But and other than that, yeah, just follow me on socials. You can find me literally everywhere under the same name. I try to keep it that way, so I'm easily found, and that's Joshua Dairen, Dairen, on every social. You can just type it in. I'm not going to give you the handles because it's literally Joshua Dairen. You'll find me. I promise.
He's one of a kind.
Yeah. Thankfully, my mom was going crazy with my middle name after giving me the most generic first and last name that she could possibly think of. So
But I love
gave me an
that.
advantage.
And I'll also link your social in the show notes, everyone, and you'll be like linked in the social media posts and all that stuff. So absolutely.
Yeah. And linked in the show notes, y'all. I just had it. Yeah, I think I have a webinar coming up. Oh,
damn, you're just doing everything.
I have a webinar with my alma mater coming up in October, and I am going to do another Strange Escapes event with Amy Bruni and friends.
Oh, that's fun.
In Gettysburg in November.
Oh, cool. So you're traveling with it now. Okay. Well, I mean, you're going somewhere with it.
Yeah. And maybe if like I'm really lucky, I can smoosh my way to getting on one more before November. But if not, like I'm very happy with just having the 2 that I've gotten this year because Lord knows I have no business being over there. But then again, I do.
Exactly. You deserve a place. You have a place.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. I'll probably think of something later and just be like, oh, I should have said this. Oh, and I make music, so follow that.
You make music too? Oh my gosh. Are you like a singer or like you like just make music?
I'm a singer. So I write all my music and sing all my stuff.
All right, we're going to talk after this. Joshua and Liz duet coming soon. Yep. The song's called Self-Validation. And the follow-up soundtrack is Introspection.
On the album, Personal Affirmation.
Oh God. I love it. I love it so much. Well, Joshua, this has been, I mean, before I even exit the episode, you and I knew this was going to be a great episode. And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I'd love to have you back. We can talk about the growth of not even just your art, but hey, as we juggle more balls, how do we maintain that light and that authenticity, right? Like that's a great conversation. So
I'll be back anytime. Like literally call me anytime. I will literally move my schedule around and do this. And
we're gonna coordinate and figure out a time for us all to get together because like we've already said, it's not too far from here. Yeah. So, but thank you so much for joining the In Between. And yeah, I can't wait to see where you go. And you know, one thing I just want to add about when we were talking about the people we've met along this journey, especially me being so early on mine compared to everybody else's, it's really been wonderful to be around such authentic people and to grow and feel that support. Because it's a little unnerving when you don't really know anyone doing what you're doing. And I don't mean that in a braggy way at all. If anything, I'm the psycho. Like I am being crazy. Like, I am 32. That's like, I'm gonna be a podcaster. Okay, cool. All right. That's great. But it is really, I'm really grateful that our paths crossed. But then again, we were twins in a past life. So I'm just kind of like, it was meant to, it was destiny for us to meet.
It was gonna happen. We wanted to put some space in between before we made it happen in this life.
Exactly. I love it. I also loved In Between there, whether that was intentional or not. Oh goodness. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we'll have you back soon. So see you guys. Talk to you.